Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Urick, and today I'm going to be talking to you about rosy retrospection. So I want you to close your eyes and remember a time you were a little kid and you went on vacation. You're little and you're so excited. Maybe it was Disneyland. You met Mickey Mouse, you rode all of the cool rides, had that giant turkey leg, and brought home some pretty awesome souvenirs. You're probably thinking to yourself right now, wow, that really was a great vacation. However, maybe what your brain chose not to recall right away was how you waited online for an hour and a half for those 45-second roller coasters. Every day you were there was 95 degrees, hot and humid with no breeze at all, and the flight there was pretty awful. The turbulence was so bad that you got sick. Of course, all of those things don't necessarily mean that you should remember that week as horrible or the worst week of your life, but if you are affected by rosy retrospection, you might be involuntarily blocking out some of those negative aspects of the past and choosing to only recall the happy or positive ones. So after doing some research about rosy retrospection and what it means if you are affected by it, I realized I myself tend to have personal biases when it comes to recalling my own personal events, and it's a very common thing that all humans, we're all guilty of it. When I first got to Rider, my family and friends would ask, "How's it going? How's it feel to finally be in college?" And I would tell them it was awesome. There were no parents. I made so many new friends. I was out every weekend at frat parties, and I had some really great professors, which was all true. However, my brain jumped to all those positive things first. I tended not to recall so fast that the first 3 months of school, my dorm didn't get below 80 degrees. I had the noisiest people live above me, and there were numerous times where I locked myself out of my dorm after getting out of the shower. So rosy retrospection is a very important cognitive bias, especially as we get older. It's important for us to understand and be more aware of. Why is it that we humans tend to recall past events as more positive than they actually were? Understanding when you are affected by rosy retrospection will allow you to recall past events more accurately and not just focus in on those positive aspects. During the rest of my speech, I will discuss what rosy retrospection is, why it happens, and is it a good or a bad thing? Now I am going to be explaining this concept. What is rosy retrospection? An article from the Decision Lab states that rosy retrospection is when a person recalls a specific event or period of time as more favorable than they actually experienced it. Studies have shown that negative memories tend to be more short-lived, therefore when you recall the overall event, you're left with a more positive memory. This includes anything in your personal life, like a certain event or day, or overall years of your life. Now, my generation certainly doesn't remember this, but my grandpa used to tell me about a time where gas was 10 cents a gallon, and you can get a McDonald's cheeseburger for 19 cents. As he got older, he watched the price go up to as high as $3.75 for a gallon of gas, and $2 for that same McDonald's cheeseburger. What my grandpa used to never mention, though, when he mentioned those fun facts, was that he grew up during the Depression. So a man in 1940 really only brought home about $100 a year. And times were really tough. But every time he went to McDonald's, he never forgot to tell me that he used to get the same exact cheeseburger for 19 cents that now he is paying $2 for. Sometimes our brain does this for a reason. Next, I'm going to be explaining why. How come rosy retrospection occurs? There are times when our brain wants us to remember certain events as better or more favorable than they actually were. An article from Effectivology states that for some people with anxiety, that this could be used as a coping mechanism. People with anxiety usually tend to overanalyze things and, blow up their mistakes when thinking about past events. So if this kind of describes you, having a rosy retrospection will help diminish the negative impact of your past mistakes. So for example, you give a presentation in front of the class. Maybe it was that first speech you recorded. Overall, you did a great job. However, you made a few mistakes. With rosy retrospection, you were able to overall have a better feeling and better recollection about giving that presentation rather than harping on those few mistakes that you might have made. You may be wondering now, is rosy retrospection good or is it bad? So now I'm going to tell you. Rosy retrospection can be a both good and bad thing to have. As mentioned earlier, rosy retrospection can be positive when it comes to recalling that school presentation. Even though you might have made a few mistakes, it's better to look back and have a good feeling about that presentation rather than having all the mistakes you might have made haunting you. Dwelling on the past is never good, even though it's better to recall events and memories accurately. On the other hand, if someone asks you how your Disneyland trip was when you were younger, you don't want to say that lines were long and it was hot and crowded. Although that might have been the case, you want to think back about your expensive trip to the happiest place on earth and remember how amazing it was and how much fun you had. In fact, there was actually an experiment done with vacationers who did in fact go to Disneyland. A week or two after returning home, parents who went with their children had mentioned the not so great things about Disneyland, including the heat, the children screaming and running around nonstop, and those ridiculously long lines. However, a few months later, their perception about their vacation actually changed, as many of them only recalled the positive aspects of their trip. So in closing, I hope that the knowledge and examples I provided you with today allow you to identify when you use a rosy retrospection. And it's sometimes okay to not immediately recall the negative aspects of a memory or a period of time. So we have discussed what rosy retrospection is, why it occurs, and also that it's neither a good or bad thing that our brains do. Thinking back to any of the several examples and scenarios I offered you with today about when rosy retrospection occurs, I want you to ask yourself, how often do I have a rosy retrospection? Perhaps even similar scenarios come to mind. Having rosy retrospection is fine. However, it is important to be able to identify when it does occur in our everyday lives and when we recall past events. Thank you.